Coach Robb here. I wanted to take a few minutes and discuss how to handle an acute injury. By definition, an acute injury is anything that's happened within the last 24 hours, give or take a little bit. And what we say when you get into a state of injury is you're in a race against space and time. So you have to move quickly and you have to move with a sense of knowledge. With all of our athletes, what we do is we apply the acronym RICE, which is going to stand for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Like I said, within the first 24 hours, your body has a lot of self-defense mechanisms where when you get hit with maybe a level of trauma, or maybe you've rolled an ankle, or you've twisted a shoulder joint or something, lifting or cross-training, or maybe sports-specific, what you've got to do is you need to start by rest, okay? Your body, the only way it's going to heal quickly is that you give it some rest and relaxation. Go into a dark, cool room so that your overall heart rate's going to be lower, the stress on your body is going to be less. Your body's obviously already in a state of injury and it needs a lot of attention. The second component is ice, and we get a lot of questions, ice or heat. Always ice for the first 3 days. If you put ice on it, what it does is it vasoconstricts and keeps a lot of inflammation and swelling from happening in that traumatized area. The body has a self-defense mechanism where it is going to send a lot of fresh blood flow to the traumatized area. That's to start the healing process. But it also wants to engorge the area to keep you, it wants to limit your range of motion so that it keeps you from creating more damage. All right? The body's got a magnificent self-defense mechanism that we cannot override. But what we got to do is work within the confines. That's why vasoconstriction through ice works. Never heat until after 3 days. Okay? Keep that in mind. 72 hours is before we want to introduce heat. For the ice, you want to go 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. Cycle that through as much as you can. Obviously, based on the various injury points, sometimes icing isn't all that conducive, nor is it conducive to do it that consistently. But I'm telling you that the ice, doing it on and off, the more you do it, the faster the results will be. The third part of that acronym is compression, and just as the name alludes, by wrapping it, it's going to help with the swelling and inflammation. Sometimes not the most comfortable, again, because of the nature of where you hurt, like obviously wrapping a shoulder is a little bit more cumbersome than if you just hurt your elbow, okay, or an ankle or a knee. The fourth one is going to be elevation, and the reason being is we want gravity to work for us, not against us. If I've got an injured elbow and I'm constantly leaving it down, gravitational pull is going to make my fingers start to look like a Vienna sausage, okay? Because what's happening is the body is sensing trauma in my elbow and it keeps wanting to send more blood flow there. Unfortunately, this cylinder starts to overfill with blood and, okay, you see where it goes. But by keeping it elevated, what it does is it allows gravity to help pull the fluid out of the traumatized area. Now, obviously, some are a little bit easier than others. Obviously, once you get to, an area that's below the belly button, trying to keep your feet elevated is going to be somewhat difficult. Maybe not so much at night, but during the day, if you have a regular desk job, it may be a little bit more difficult. One of the questions that we get quite often is, what about ibuprofen? And ibuprofen is kind of a catch-22. Ibuprofen is going to help with the swelling. It's going to help with the tenderness. But the problem that I have with ibuprofen, and any medicine for that matter, is it kind of tricks the brain into thinking that your injury is no longer there. So what happens is you start to feel good and then you kind of head back into your exercises. Not a good thing to do. Okay? So the question is, should I or should I not take ibuprofen? I say take ibuprofen before you go to bed so that you can sleep better, and now we're able to facilitate the whole rest cycle. However, during the day, I'd prefer you not to take ibuprofen so that you don't get a false sense of security between your brain and your injured area, so that way you don't go out and you make an unnecessary action on the injured area. Because remember, if you don't feel the pain, your body says, hey, we're good, let's go. You go out, you go back to your old ways, and you just are setting yourself back another day, another 3 days, another week, depending on how far and how fast you go with it. Okay? So the thing I want you to remember is pain is your body's indicator to you to stop doing what you're doing. If it hurts, something's wrong. It could be something as simple as soft tissue that's tight and causing pain. It could be a structural issue. You may have a stress fracture. You may be biomechanical, where you're just doing something wrong, which is causing an irritation and inflammation. But don't try to push through pain. Pain is a very, very big indicator for your body. And I know that some people say no pain, no gain. that's going to get you nowhere but into a bunch of injuries and eventually burn out. Okay? So thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, please take the time to email me. My email address is Robb, R-O-B-B, the number 3, @earthlink.net, and I appreciate you watching the video.